Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
Pretending to strongly believe in something that you don't is great preparation for being like a lawyer or a stepdad. You just have to stuff down your feelings and stop believing in anything.
The Caitrin has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man.
Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, my new puppy, Trixie, is starting to settle in, and I already love her so much, like desperately. But am I being disloyal to Chucky and Omar?
It's a good question. I've had friends who one of the parents dies, and like the other parent started dating so fast that you're just like, were you thinking about it before? Like, was this somebody you had lined up? They're like, I don't think you had Trixie lined up, you know? Like,
Definitely not.
I feel like you would
It
get,
wasn't even my idea to go get her, but
right. I feel like you would get their blessing. Like they're looking down on you, like we said from Jedi heaven, nodding like an approval.
I forget if I said this on something, maybe a Patreon, but Jen believes that Omar sent Trixie to us because Trixie was born soon after. Did I say that already? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if you said it on air.
Like hardcore rationalist atheist Jen Summers thinks that, like, I mean, she's not like a hardcore atheist, but she rolls her eyes at all my shit about ghosts and like Buddhism.
Good for her.
But yeah, she's like, but when it comes to that, she thought Tessie, our previous dog, contacted Omar and said, follow them home. And then now she thinks Omar is paying that forward. So,
right.
Yeah.
There can always be an exception to your worldview. Like it's
Exactly.
There is nothing supernatural except for this one thing.
Yeah. Jinxing too.
Right.
But I feel like my loyalty to Charlie and Omar is unimpeachable. Like I love those dogs.
It's a sign that you feel guilty at all. Yeah. It's a sign of your loyalty. So if you were just like, I guess I used to have two other dogs recently, you know.
I think the thing that actually made me feel bad is what you said about like the husband whose wife dies and then is on Match.com. Like
to the next
I know a few people like that, like before the soil is dry, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember when my first marriage ended, like I told my dad.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was like a tough conversation with my parents. You know, I'd been like holding on to it and trying to find the right time to do it and finally tell him. And like I was probably in tears, you know. And he goes, like he paused after a while and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. What about your friend so-and-so?
That's awesome.
I was like, dude.
We have a kid.
I'm like crying.
That's hilarious. Do you think that indicated that maybe he had some reservations in the first place?
You know what I think it indicated is that he always thought that this other woman was like a good match for me. And like, just
and
kind of
sitting
hot.
On that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny.
My mom was on the line too, and she was like, Alejo. Like she was just saying, what?
Well, it's just too much to ask someone to not live with the dog when you could live with the dog.
Well, especially given that you're saving a dog from a potential either death or terrible life.
Yeah, definitely death. Like
Yeah,
nobody else
in
wanted
Texas.
her at the SPCA.
Right.
I joke that like when we got her, actually brought her out of the SPCA, they were all kind of laughing and patting each other on the back like used car salesmen after they like unload that one car that they couldn't get rid of on some sucker. No, I love the tricks. But yeah. Anyway, in the second segment, speaking of species that are better than humans, we will be talking about elephants, elephant souls, elephant consciousness, elephant grieving, all things elephant. And in a great article, like a wide-ranging article on elephants and the debate surrounding them and just animals in general.
Animals in general, that's right. Yeah.
But first...
Let's put on our spectacles, throw on some bratwurst onto the Barbie, and
pour us a lager. And
watch some Shiza porn.
Yeah. So this was my idea. I'll just cop to it right now because I don't know if it's going to work or not. So either blame or credit me. But we've had some criticisms of Germans. I've had some bad things to say about Germany in general, but it's undeniable that they are unparalleled at coining words for human experiences.
Just champions at coining words.
Yes. You know, Schadenfreude is obviously the prime example of this. Schadenfreude, the glee at another one's misfortune. It is an undeniable fact that some humans experience Schadenfreude. Maybe all humans. I'm not sure. Maybe that's going to be the thing that separates us from elephants. Like that's why we're like better is because we can experience Schadenfreude.
I bet you they feel it.
Yeah, they might feel it. Yeah, I hope so. But it's not exhaustive. They didn't capture all human experiences with the single word. So we are going to come up with a few ideas of words that capture something, like a phenomenon that we don't have a word for and that really only the Germans could come up with a single word to describe this phenomenon.
Right. And by way of extra preamble, like there is something about the German language and its ability to put words together to make new words that I feel makes it, one, a great philosophy language because its ability to capture concepts. And I think once you do, you are more likely to notice those experiences. And, you know, English kind of allows for it, but it's just not officially part of our language. So,
yeah.
So we're coming up with some German quote.
And I should say that I think David took this a little more seriously in trying to match like the roots of the word with the phenomenon he's describing. But I know no German and know none of the roots except only vaguely. And so these are made up words on my part. Yeah. And if the German dictionaries choose not to include these words, that's up to them. It's entirely their right. I'm not telling Germans what they need to put in their dictionary, but I think these are good words.
It will be to their detriment if they don't choose to add these.
It's up to them, you know. All right, you want to lead off?
It's even worse that I tried to look up the German words because like I might have just gotten the wrong version of the word completely. Like it's actually going to be embarrassing, but it doesn't matter. The first thing that I want to coin is a phenomenological concept that English doesn't have a good word for. That I don't know if you feel it because I think that it's a particular kind of personality that feels it. I don't know how to describe it other than a mild OCD discomfort at small degrees of disorder. So let me explain what I'm talking about. So
I definitely don't feel that.
Imagine that you had like a row of number 2 pencils that were all like perfectly in order and one of them was just slightly off. And you look at it and you're just like, ugh, like you get this like, the example that my friend used to give is you remember those cars that had, maybe some of them still do, the trunk key? You like slide the logo of the car in order to access the trunk key. Mm-hmm. And you see one of those driving around and it's a super nice car, but that thing is open. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, all you want to do is just like pull the guy over and like have them close that because it bothers you. Okay. So,
so don't feel that.
You don't feel it. I was trying to figure out how to say discomfort, like obsessive discomfort. Do you not feel any of this? Like if you see a really nice kitchen that's all clean, but one of the cabinets is like propped open, you know, like it just bothers you. You don't feel any of this?
I wish I felt it more, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great example because I hit my head on open cabinets all the time. Like the corner of them has like torn up like parts of my skull.
Okay, so it's this. Sorry, German people. Besessen Ubenhagen. It's discomfort, pleasure. Besessen Ubenhagen.
Nice. All right. I'm totally on board with your actually trying to come up with something.
So I'm making a mockery of that. I apologize to all Germans.
All right, that's a good one. I feel like that's a really good one. All right. All right, so my first word, I'm going to give the word first. Verdandeschicht. Verdandeschicht. So this is when you're just kind of dug into an utterly indefensible position, usually publicly, but this can also be private. And you can't go back. It's like you're too dug in. You're too committed. It's too much now a part of who you are. And maybe like a tiny part of you knows that what you're claiming and saying is indefensible, but instead of trying to just retreat, you have to double down. You have to even escalate it to the point where even the people who are defending the view that you're defending, the utterly indefensible view, are embarrassed by you and you're carrying these on. Like Brett Weinstein, kind of an obvious example. He went Verdandeschicht in like 2018, probably somewhere around there. But your boy, Shai Davidai, oh my God, such an example of this. Just descended into just pure insanity, just a lunatic thing that even the most staunch pro-Israel people are now trying to like disassociate himself with. But this is the Columbia professor who is, I don't know, like I know that you know him or whatever, but
I not only know him, but I love him as a person, so I will sort of like bow out of saying anything other than he has dug in his heels in a way that I think is damaging. Definitely damaging.
How many things can you compare to Nazi Germany? Just utterly innocuous things can you compare to that? He really has like alienated even the people who would be most likely to support.
There was a funny tweet that showed sort of like the various people from completely opposite perspectives who were like, really? Like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was when he said, this is Columbia University right now. And it was just like a bunch of people praying, like doing a very peaceful Muslim prayer.
Right,
and like
right.
even like the right wing crazy people were like, what's wrong with that? You know, that's Verdandeschicht, like clear Verdandeschicht. Today, some people on Twitter are saying I might be Verdandeschicht, but I don't think, you know.
Well, part of Verdandeschicht is that you can't admit that you're in Verdandeschicht.
It's true. But, you know, I'll let the listeners judge for themselves whether objecting to like Texas sending in like over 100 state troopers and police for a utterly peaceful protest at UT Austin is objecting to that defensible. I mean, I think it is, but you know, I could be Verdandeschicht. I guess you never know.
Always watch out. Friends, look out for friends. Verdandeschicht.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. I like it. Okay, I'm going to go with your convention of saying the word first. I think that's more effective. This one is half made up, half German. Wer ist outrage? This is outrage is a made up word of mine. It's just outrage.
Nice.
This is.
You're good at this.
Thank you.
This could be a recurring segment.
So this is something we've talked about, and I just don't think there's a word that captures it because there is like a real specific kind of moral outrage at minor infractions. So like righteous indignation, we've talked about shopping carts, like when people don't replace their shopping carts or whatever.
Yes.
Or like you get that feeling when you see somebody cut in line, like when you're at the airport and you're like, wait, are they just scamming me and pretending they have family up front? And like every ounce of my like Rawlsian sort of like intuition just crashes down on my psyche. And I'm like more outraged by that than I am by like the discourse around Israel.
For
that
the
moment.
brazenness of it, and you're just kind of incredulous. Like, why would you do that? You know,
Right. And all things considered, it's a stupid thing that like it doesn't matter that much, but it's just like a violation of like this contract that we have that like these little things matter, you know, like there goes society. And I feel like the phenomenology of it is it comes crashing down on you very fast when you see somebody doing one of these things. And it can dissipate pretty fast. At least for me.
So how do you use that in a sentence?
I felt Visitaltrage when I saw them cutting in line.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. The little outrages. Like, why would you do that? I don't think it's like you're more outraged than you are about the things
No, it's just
you
like
deeply
disproportionate.
Yeah. It's just disproportionate to what it is.
It's like when you stub your toe and for a second you swear that is the worst pain a human being could ever feel.
Yeah.
And you know that it's not.
Yeah. That's like when I hit my head on the corner of the cabinet that I've left open.
You need some besessen Ubnehagen.
All right. My next one is, and again, I want to stress, this is not based on any knowledge of German or German roots or the Germanic language. Wälzernachten.
Okay.
This is about something that you care about so much for a kind of defined period of time, but then one day inexplicably just stop caring about that thing.
Yeah, good.
One of my favorite examples of this is the first season of Serial, where it was like everyone was so locked in on this case with Adnan and, you know, his trial and is he innocent? And there were all these witnesses that, you know, they were still interviewing and stuff like that. And, you know, it ends in a very uncertain place. And like while it's going on, everybody is just, at least I was one of these people.
I never listened. Yeah.
You never listened. Yeah.
No.
I was one of these people who like, it's like all I wanted to talk about, you know, like in retrospect, it might be embarrassing, but this is how it was. And I don't think I was alone. Once it ended, what was funny is a lot of stuff is up in the air, a lot of shady shit about the way the crime was prosecuted and a witness's statement. The case was still going on. It was such a phenomenon that like it brought a lot of public profile to what was happening. And so the story was still developing, and they would even kind of give updates on Serial, but nobody cared. Like nobody,
No.
There was this one witness, like I hadn't even like looked this up, but he was named Paul. And there was like an interview with Paul that was published somewhere else. And someone said to me, did you see that they had an interview of Paul and he answers some of those questions from Serial? I was like, oh yeah, I heard that. Never bothered to even check what it was. And like, you know, like this was something that I was so invested in, like the mystery of it. And I just think this is a real phenomenon. Like I think it could also be about like, you know, a girl or a guy that you're into.
I was about to say,
yeah.
it's like infatuation for ideas or things like akin to romantic infatuation.
Akin, yeah. But it's just weird the way it's such an abrupt change.
So I feel like we had this for Mr. Robot.
Yes.
Not so much
exactly.
because like, yeah, it wasn't so much because there was like shit ending or like whatever.
No.
One day we just stopped caring to talk about it. And maybe some of it is because the show's ideas weren't as compelling to us, but it didn't feel like we were like so dissatisfied. It just was like, I have, I think maybe a mini version of this, like a lot. So I'll get into like 2, 3, 4 week spells of watching YouTube videos that are all about like one topic. So
Yeah.
I'll just be like martial arts, right? Like I'll just be like 4 weeks, like watching videos about martial arts. And then one day it'll just stop.
Yeah.
Like it's not, it's just,
There's no rational, you didn't realize something about it. You just don't care about it.
Yeah.
It just went Wälzernachten, you know?
Wälzernachten.
I think
We're gonna have
Nacht
to
is
spell
night,
these.
right?
yeah. Oh, it just went to the night.
It went to the night.
It went gently into the night.
So that was the one where I put a word that I knew into it. Yeah, no, totally. That's a great example. Just stuff you get into on YouTube, and then it's like, oh, whatever, you know?
All right. Yeah. It happens a lot.
Mr. Robot
Yeah.
is a really good example because it's not that
Right?
I think
Isn't it weird?
it was bad. It was just I
No.
stopped caring about it at all. Like,
Yeah.
the best things aren't vulnerable to Like, I think most things we could be vulnerable
Yeah.
to Wälzernachten.
Yeah.
But
right.
like the best things aren't. Like Twin Peaks, Deadwood, there's no Wälzernachten.
Literally right before we started recording, we were talking about art that gets better, the like multiple watches or listens or whatever. Like for me, the rap of MF Doom, like it can't lose that. Like it can never.
Question. Dark. Weltzernachten or Nein Weltzernachten?
Nein. I felt like, you remember, I felt like it jumped the shark. So I felt like I had more reason to lose enthusiasm, which I don't think is the Weltzernachten.
No, I agree.
Right.
Not Weltzernachten.
All right. My third and last one is Vergnügen Kringe,
Nice.
where Kringe is just cringe.
Yeah.
And that is something that other people have pointed out before, but I don't think there's a word for it. It's not like hate watching or hate reading. It's when there's just some cringe thing that you just can't help but read. So we have, I'm not going to say who it is, but there is a particular Twitter account that you and I sometimes text each other about that. It's like, why am I continuing to follow this? Like, it makes me mad every time this person posts this.
You especially. Like, I actually kind of like it.
You like it? Well, clearly
Well,
I like
think
it
it's
in
funny.
some way.
Yeah.
But it bothers me. Like I morally am judging this person for doing it.
Yeah.
And there's some meta pleasure that I'm getting out of hating, but it's not hate. It's different than hate watching. Like it's milder.
Much milder, yeah. So what's the word?
Vergnügen Kringe.
So,
The enjoyment of cringe.
so in a sentence, it would be like, oh man, he's really gotten Vergnügen, but like that would be indicating that you can't quit it, even though.
Yeah, right. Although I might describe that Twitter account as a Vergnügen Kringe account.
Yeah.
Because it like
That's
draws
good.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
All right, my last one. Brachmeinenscheid. Brachmeinenscheid.
All right. Brachmeinenscheid. What's that?
That's when that moment when you realize something that you previously liked actually sucks.
We're prone to that, I guess.
I guess we could be in this.
Yeah.
So, I don't think so, though. I think we could be more Weltzernachten than this.
Right.
But
I'm hoping we're more like
I'm
MF
trying,
Doom.
and I'm distinguish. I need to distinguish between these two things. Like
Right,
the
okay.
first one, it's like it doesn't suck. It's just you don't care about it anymore.
Yeah,
Whereas this,
right.
you realize actually is not good. So I think like the whole nation experienced this with Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the second season or like it was just like wait, maybe this whole thing actually sucks.
Right. I haven't tried to rewatch season 1 for fear of feeling it.
Yes, for feeling Brachmeinenscheid. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I feel like some people thought was Brachmeinenscheid. They had that. It was like, wait, I loved him. Like all I did was sing Hamilton lyrics and
Right.
wait, does he suck? You were on the vanguard of like you couldn't feel Brachmeinenscheid.
Not for that.
Not
Right.
for that, but other people could.
Wait, is this a collective emotion? Because like Ted Lasso and Lin-Manuel Miranda are still beloved by some, so is it
doesn't
just an
have to be.
individual realization?
Yeah, it could be just an individual realization. I do think like I use those examples because I think some percentage of people experienced Brachmeinenscheid regarding those two things. Like
I feel like people might end up feeling that way about Taylor Swift.
I have that in my notes, and this is going to infuriate my assistant editor. But I think maybe we are entering a Brachmeinenscheid moment right now for Taylor Swift. But I don't think so. I think it'll be more like Mr. Robot, where it's like, okay, I'm kind of done with this right now, for now anyway.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other good examples of because it does feel like there is sometimes this collective, like, really? Yeah, what were we thinking?
And I certainly experienced this a lot. If you're a teacher, for example, and you've been assigning papers for a while in some class, and then you just go back and reread it in preparation for teaching it this year, sometimes you're like, oh, wait, this paper actually isn't good. Like,
I feel that way for, I went to a small school, and in like our junior high and high school, there were certain people who just were like, somehow were agreed on to be attractive. Like they were the attractive ones. And at some point I realized they were never attractive. there was something about them that's like somebody with some pull decided that they thought they were attractive, and then everybody like, smoked the collective crack pipe.
Yeah. And then just like the fog was lifted. And then
Yeah, and then you're like, wait, what? We thought that was attractive?
Yeah. Yeah, I think with people, you experience Brahmanensheit quite a bit. Like somebody that you really like, respect, like think is fun to hang out with. Like at a certain moment, it can just, oh, wait, no, this person sucks. They're not
There
good.
needs to be an additional, a companion word for the feeling of disappointment when you realize it.
Yeah, right. Right. This is just the phenomenon of experiencing it, but then also like, because there's some self-examination. What was wrong with me that I loved?
Yeah, like when you first said, maybe season 1 of Ted Lasso wasn't good, I hadn't really thought about it. Like I was just like, well, clearly there was a drop in quality. But then when you said like, maybe we were all just lonely in COVID and we needed like something to, know, and it turns out to be, and I was like, oh, like maybe.
Yeah, no, that's right. Like, I think it might be that. It wasn't just that they completely lost all their talent and ran out of ideas. It was just like we were in a bad place collectively. But I don't know. I haven't gone back and watched it. And I immediately jumped ship. I felt that very strongly with Ted Lasso during season 2. I was like, wait, like it takes like 2 episodes maybe for you. Wait, I hate this actually. This is
so bad. This is so bad. Yeah. And I was looking it up. Like, did they lose writers? No.
Yeah.
No. Like, yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you, German listeners.
Thank you, Germans. Thank you for coming up with these words. And
please don't email me corrections to the language. I know already.
Definitely don't email me.
Someone's going to email me a correcting pronunciation for my made up words, and I'm just going to double down.
Yeah, that's what you should do. Right. You would get Verdandeschichte.
I'm going to say in the original Germanic.
Yeah, right. In the Prussian saga.
In the Proto-Germanic language of the... Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back to talk about elephants.
What do you smell? Eights, like the number 8. Like the number 8. Right. That's kind of a weird thing to be selling.
Listen, you take this 8 here, you see? It's very useful. You buy it. You hang it on the wall.
Why should I buy an 8 and hang it on the wall?
Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time where we like to take a moment and thank all of our listeners who support us, who get in touch with us in all the different ways that you do. But first, we have a little request. A longtime listener, a longtime friend of the show, Farid Anvari, also kind of a fellow skeptic on scientific measurement. His wife, and I hope I'm not pronouncing this incorrectly, Jana Anvari, her family is in Gaza. She has a lot of family right now in Gaza, 5 siblings, and a lot of their family. And all their homes have been destroyed, and they are desperate to leave Gaza right now. Malnutrition is starting to set in. And so there is a GoFundMe that was started to help them get out of Gaza to safety temporarily. So if you can drop a few euros into that GoFundMe, if you so choose, we'll put a link. We'll put a link out there. Help a longtime listener of the podcast out, Farid Anvari and his wife and her family.
He's a good dude. He's also a social psychologist.
Yes.
So, whether that works in one direction or the other.
We also have another somewhat important announcement, not on the same level of scale.
Yeah, it sort of brings things into perspective. Yeah.
But we have decided to go ad-free for the indefinite future.
This has been sort of a decision like that we've been pondering for a long time, but we've just felt like for a while now that it's better to move to completely listener supported. And I think,
Yeah.
I'll just feel better about that.
Yeah, and we decided also that if we're, for the extra time that we do have, we'd rather put that into putting out bonus content and just making our Patreon and that community, which is already, I think, a fairly thriving community that we're very proud of. So we are going to try. There's going to be some changes there in the Patreon, maybe a new tier. And we'll keep you updated about that. That's still in flux for right now. I do want to say, I gotta say right now, there's crackdowns at UT Austin 2 of the last 5 or 6 days, and over 100 people were arrested yesterday. And one of my daughter's good friends is in jail right now. She's in jail trying to wait for him. There's no info as to whether he'll be released or not, but just so unbelievably unacceptable, just open authoritarianism from UT, maybe surprisingly, and also and certainly Abbott and the state police. So
we might start some GoFundMe bail.
It's so infuriating. It really is. Yeah. It's just so outrageous. Anyway, if you would like to get in touch with us, and maybe you will now, you can email us at verybadwizards@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at Peas or at Tamler or at verybadwizards. You can follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. You can join the Reddit community. It was a little moribund for a while, but it's picking back up on the Reddit, I think. And you can give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to talk shit, that's fine. Talk shit. Talk your shit. Just give us 5 stars as your...
Is that the price?
Yeah.
The price you have to pay?
It's ironic, you Gen Z kids love irony. Right? It's so meta that people will get that you really think it's 1 star.
Right.
Yeah, so please do that. Subscribe to us on Spotify or rate us on Spotify. Can you rate things on Spotify? I don't know.
You can actually leave comments. I have seen that. Do whatever you need to do on Spotify. And if you want to support us in more tangible ways, which is now more important to us than ever, you can join our Patreon. And we'll be eternally grateful, but we also give you some stuff back at $1 and up. Now that we've announced that we're going ad-free from now on, the $1 and up will be more like you guys just telling us you want to throw us a couple of bucks, but you also get my compilation of beats. But just for a couple dollars more, at $2 and up per episode, you get access to our back catalog of bonus content and stuff that we are continuing to create, including our Ambulators podcast that we have one more season, half a season to go.
We have 8 more episodes, I think.
Part of what we'll do is maybe just use our tiers to solicit stuff to talk about once we're done with Deadwood.
Yeah.
Because we will need ideas. At $5 and up, you get all of the bonus content. And you also get to vote on an episode topic that we do a couple times a year. So $5 up per episode. You also get access to our 5-part Brothers Karamazov series. You get some of Tamler's lectures on Plato, some of my intro psych lectures. And at $10 and up, you get all of that, plus you get to ask us anything once a month. The audio of that Ask Us Anything is available to all bonus content tiers. But at $10 and up, you get to ask the questions, and you get, I don't know why you would want it, but you get a video episode of us answering, unedited video of us answering those questions. If you find it in your heart to give back to us, we have always wanted to keep this free for people, but we really appreciate the support that you guys give.
Yeah, and we just put out a call for questions, by the way, for Ask Us Anything. We'll probably record that this weekend.
Yeah, the episode today came out of suggestions from our Patreon supporters, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. For doing that. We have the Denial of Death. That was the winner. I don't know if we announced it, but that was the winner officially of the listener-selected episode. And so we got
sitting on my dresser. The book is sitting on my dresser, staring at me every night before I go to bed, causing me all kinds of insomnia.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's get back to the episode.
All right. Let's dive into our main topic. Elephant Soul. So this is an article actually from 2013 called Do Elephants Have Souls? On the Evidence for Non-Human Intelligence, Awareness, and Emotions by Caitrin Keiper in the New Atlantis. So this is a very long article, but very good. She takes a deep dive into the minds of elephants, asking some real fundamental questions about the nature of their cognition, their emotion, their culture, maybe even their spirituality, their morality. It's, I think, you use this word sprawling, sort of, but in a good way, like a very broad take on what turns out to be just, I think, a fascinating topic. And I think it's beautifully written. It draws on scientific research, anecdotal evidence from people who've interacted with elephants, and even some literature to really describe in great detail these majestic creatures, these elephants, their psychology, their society, and really whether they have anything that we might consider a soul. And I think even though this isn't the main point of her article, I think by the end, I realized that what this also does is make us question in a fundamental way what it means to be human by comparing these creatures to us.
Yeah. And I don't think we come out very good in the comparison.
No.
Like elephants really are a rare species that just seem undeniably, like uncontroversially better than us. With chimpanzees, they're extremely violent. Dolphins, I guess, can engage in some terrible violence. But elephants, it's just like, oh, wait, these are superior creatures in like almost every way without sacrificing just the sophistication and complexity of their social and intellectual life. Like it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. I was cringing at my own use of the word majestic, but like I think it's just apt. Like it's in comparison to us, it's just.
You texted me earlier that you were like emotional reading this.
Yeah, like there were times like I read it twice, and there were times where I was like kind of fighting back tears.
Yeah,
I don't know how you felt about it. Yeah,
I felt that too, and I also felt the richness of the way they experience life is not what we imagine a non-human animal is capable of.
You know what I was just like, I couldn't shake the feeling by the end of this is with all of the cognitive, communicative, emotional abilities that they seem to have and living in the world that they do, where humans have become the dominant species, I can't help but think like they must all be a little sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard for me to I can't rid myself of this feeling. That just makes me really sad.
I feel very sad about that too. I also felt a little like, in 12 Monkeys destroying humanity in order to let these incredible, magnificent creatures actually inhabit the earth without being trained and put into circuses and poached for their ivory and all of that shit. It wouldn't be the worst thing if the elephants could just have free reign. They're not going to take over the world. They're not even really predators or especially violent, except when they get the high testosterone teenager elephants.
Right. I can picture them all sort of like in West Side Story, switchblade knife fights, trying to...
dripping urine from their penises. Yeah, and it just raises so many interesting questions about like the taboo against anthropomorphizing animals, even for the well-intentioned people, for the people who aren't like Descartes and thinking that they're just
like mechanisms.
Yeah, high-level machines. Still us trying to understand an elephant experiences is problematic in all sorts of ways because they have a completely different way of interacting with the world that we do, which isn't to say that they don't have any way of interacting with the world, but it's just very different from ours.
Yeah, there's this interesting balance, and I think that's a good place to start where, well, there's two things. Okay, one, I think that there is a very deep cultural tradition. I don't know if it's particularly Christian, Judeo-Christian, and maybe that influenced this, but I think that there is at least an independent or perhaps parallel strain of thinking that has always been deeply suspicious of attributing any human-like traits, desires, motivations, goals to animals, especially in the scientific study of animals. And this came to its peak in behaviorism in mid-century, 20th century, where you were like ridiculed if you even dared to speak of like the inner mental state of animals.
Yeah.
And because all of their research was so much with like pigeons and rats and other animals, and focused on behavior, it was just straight up taboo, like you said, or unscientific to, in your theorizing, to have a role for an inner mental state. I mean, for people too, but especially a
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's almost somewhat consistent from the behaviorists since they would apply that to people as well. However, implausibly, at least it wasn't trying to set human beings apart
like above,
in that way.
That's right. And I was trained explicitly in this way that we should never attribute these mental states to animals, or at least that should be the stance that we go into it with, right? Like you should go into the study of these creatures assuming that they're like Cartesian robots, unless you really have evidence otherwise. I think that's some of that started to change with the neuroscience of like emotion, like affective neuroscience, where we realized that animal models of understanding human emotion were pretty good. And so people became a bit more comfortable saying like animals have fear and anger. Now, I remember reading like a while ago a nice defense of anthropomorphizing animals that sort of changed my mind about this. And they were pointing out that the term anthropomorphism originated with a warning for humans to attribute human-like traits to the gods.
Right.
That's what the sin of anthropomorphism was.
Ah, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, don't dare think that the gods have like what we have. That's wrong. And then we sort of like pushed it down, and said that we shouldn't do this to animals. I think it's really weird that we have so much reluctance. If you've been around animals for any amount of time, it seems so fucking weird to think that they don't have a mental life.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And it feels like that should be the default. I mean, like we have evolutionary ties with a lot of these animals. You know, it gets a little complicated if you're talking about like an octopus or something like that. But when you're talking about apes and you're talking about
mammals in general,
and dogs, it's like there's this anecdote in the essay where this woman, Daphne Sheldrick, describes her involvement in writing articles about animal behavior for the wildlife clubs of Kenya's schools, where they have a lot of elephants. And then she reads the literature, and it just turns out to be all convoluted because they're committed to this mechanistic and like rigorously unanthropomorphizing, and not even just anthropomorphizing, but just attributing mental states to these animals. They're so committed to rejecting that to try to explain behavior becomes very difficult. She says, I attributed this to the fact that science precluded researchers from interpreting animal behavior in an anthropomorphic way. And as such, they came up with complicated explanations as to why an animal was behaving in a certain way, when in fact the answer was pretty simple. One simply had to compare it to the likely response of the human animal if subjected to the same set of circumstances. So, you know, the Dennett intentional stance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Dan Dennett. But his view on the intentional stance was it is a extremely useful way, and he was talking about this with humans, of explaining the behavior of humans. And if you go mechanistic or try to explain it at the level of neurons, it's not going to be as explanatory as if you take the intentional stance and assume that they have mental states. It's exactly the same for animals, or at least certain animals. And of course you could get it wrong, but you can get it wrong for humans too. There's no clear dividing line. And so it's like, even scientifically, from just a purely descriptive and explanatory way of trying to understand the phenomenon, it seems utterly misguided.
Yeah. And I feel like we've sort of agreed as in behavioral science that there are different levels of explanation where you can just say, okay, like I'm interested in like the neural mechanisms of behavior. And so when I'm studying that, I'm not going to be concerned with, desires and goals or whatever. But that it feels like that's very clearly doesn't mean that most of those people think that humans don't have that. I suspect that language is the huge thing that is what prevents us from doing this, but I still think that that's fairly thick-headed, like just because an animal can't tell you.
They still react in the same way that a person who's not speaking, you can read their emotions and their behavior and their facial expressions, and you can predict because of that how they might behave. You can do that with these other animals, and the best way of describing why you can do that is through a kind of intentional stance.
I do think that one of the big reasons why, like, it seems obvious to some people that these animals have complex emotions and desires and goals and behaviors and memories and all of that stuff is simply that, like, they've actually lived with these animals. Like, the people who have the richest understanding of the behavior of elephants specifically clearly are people who've spent a lot of time around them. And there's something about the scientific method that requires a distancing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really have, with obviously a lot of exceptions, like Jane Goodall being a huge exception, but there is no real, anthropology for animals in the same way that there is for other cultures. And I think that people like Jane Goodall are often kind of like, people laugh about them behind their back because they think that they are exaggerating the mental life of these animals.
Like this guy, Wesley Smith, that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you want to talk about the villain?
The Voldemort of bioethicists. But yeah, let's save that.
So toward the beginning, she writes, animals are often celebrated for virtues that they seem to embody. Dogs for loyalty, bears for courage, dolphins for altruism, and so on. But what does it really mean for them to model these things? When people act virtuously, we give them credit for well-chosen behavior. Animals, it's presumed, do so without choosing. From a religious anthropocentric perspective, it might be said that while animal virtues do not entail morality for the animals themselves, they reveal to us the goodness in creation. As the medieval theologian Johannes Scotus Eriugena wrote, in a wonderful and inexpressible way, God is created in his creatures. From a more biological view, it might be noted that people mostly do not choose their dispositions either, that behavioral tendencies are more determined than we like to tell ourselves, and that blame and credit for such things are often misspelled in human contexts too. But the latter idea that humans, although capable of conscious self-direction, are as mutely carried along by the forces of selection as your friendly neighborhood amoeba simply elides the question, while the former raises many more. The tiger is as much God's creature as the lamb. In any case, the capacity for choosing is a binary conceit that gestures at something much fuller, an inner realm of awareness, selfhood, and possibility. In other words, a soul. And here's where she talks about what she means by soul, right? Like, she's not talking here about a soul in any spiritual, dualistic way, or at least not a religious way. But rather, she says what we mean when we say soul, like when we say what it means for someone to bear it, for music to have it, for eyes to be the window to it, for it to be uplifted or depraved. And that's the beginning of the picture that she's trying to build of these complex creatures. What is really preventing us from thinking of them just as rich terms as we think of humans who we believe have a soul?
I often wonder, who are the outliers here? Because like you said, people who interact with these animals don't seem, for the most part, unless they're like too science-pilled to allow their just normal emotions and way of processing like experience to influence them. But like most people, I think, if you think about how people act about their dogs, right? Like there's just nobody thinks this about dogs who has a dog. There might be people who work with dogs who try to spin some deflationary account of why they behave the way, and they don't actually love you. They're not actually loyal to you. They're not. But normal people don't do that, I think. I wonder if normal people even do it about elephants,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they don't. And I think that as evidence, you can see how easy it is for people to act in a way that seems like they're attributing mental states to machines. I think it's very easy for people to view all kinds of things as intentional agents. Maybe that's the source of the scientific skepticism.
Yeah, right.
She talks about Nagel's what is it like to be a bat? And I think she's fair to say, like, it's not like we shouldn't be concerned that we can get out of control in attributing these things. Like, these animals really do have different perceptual mechanisms, right? So she says the elephants have like shitty vision and a really good sense of smell. And so trying to understand their phenomenology, like we probably should be a little bit wary of over attributing the human experience to them because they really are different.
Yeah.
In the same way that anthropologists might say people from radically different cultures, you should be a little bit wary of attributing your concepts or whatever. So it's healthy, I think, to be at least a little bit controlled in this.
Like we should distinguish two different things. There's the not wanting to attribute specifically human characteristics, like maybe jealousy, romantic jealousy or something like that, to an elephant. And then there's just denying that they have these experiences at all, and that it isn't just a complex mechanism acting in ways that kind of trick us into thinking that they have minds and souls and emotions and sentience.
What's crazy is that if you think that, right, which I think some scientists genuinely do, then it's a damn amazing trick. Like there are a lot of things that have been said to be uniquely human.
Yeah. So like there's a great quote about this. Someone says, man has called himself, among other things, the rational animal, the moral animal, the consciously choosing animal, the deliberately evil animal, the political animal, the tool-making animal, the historical animal, the commodity-making animal, the economical animal, the foreseeing animal, the promising animal, the death-knowing animal, the art-making or aesthetic animal, the explaining animal, the cause-bearing animal, the classifying animal, the measuring animal, the counting animal, the metaphor-making animal, the talking animal, the laughing animal, the religious animal, the spiritual animal, the metaphysical animal, the wondering animal. Man, it seems, is the self-predicating animal. Yeah.
That's great, right? Like when you look at some of the literature on, or just even psych textbooks, you'll hear like, what's weird is that humans are the only animal that sheds tears.
Yeah.
Humans are the only animal that laughs, or like, this is the uniquely human trait. And it's like we're constantly looking for the one thing that separates us. And the truth is, when you at least take the animal kingdom writ large, other than language, I don't think that there's anything left.
Yeah. And maybe even not language if defined broadly enough. But
if defined broadly enough, yeah.
But I do think it's important to distinguish the kind of anthropomorphizing that you should be a little skeptical of. But yeah, the other alternative isn't to just not attribute anything to them. So she goes through the reasons for the taboo against anthropomorphism.
Yeah, she mentions three that we've sort of talked about a couple of them. So the one that it's hard to know even what another human being experiences. And so animals with different biology might have like a radically different phenomenology. Like, the bad thing, which seems reasonable.
Yeah.
The unscientific, right? The behavioral science that tried to be as rigorous as possible, that landed on some version of behaviorism that said behavior is the only thing that ought to be studied because it's objective, kind of worked its way into behavioral science in general. And so the unscientific nature of maybe positing mental events in non-human animals that can never be objectively rigorously tested.
Yeah.
So you might get left out of the building. And then the last one, which I think really accounts for a lot of this, like maybe at the heart of the motivation to keep up these ways of thinking, is somehow the view that in elevating animals to the status of human in many of these abilities is to debase humans. It's actually bringing humans down.
Yeah.
And that somehow seems threatening, whether it's threatening religiously or existentially or something. But the feeling that we're special seems to be driving a lot of anti-anthropomorphic thinking.
Which is so, like, I have so little sympathy with that view on every level. If that's the motivation for anybody engaging in things like anti-scientific approaches and attitudes towards non-human animals, it's like fucking ressentiment or something. It's weak. It's pathetic that we have to try to like raise ourselves above the animals by like failing to notice obvious things about them.
Yeah. And it's one thing if it's explicitly motivated by a belief that like God created humans to have like a soul and animals not to have a soul or something like that.
Yeah.
Then I just think you're wrong about that. But this is the vibe you get. Like throughout, she talks about poachers or people who have engaged in hunting. When she talks about killing elephants, people like Teddy Roosevelt, who are just like, yeah, I got to like keep these tusks. it just seems like, yeah, I guess your view that you have dominion over the animals and that you're superior to the animals is either so strong that it's allowing you to turn off a moral sense, or you are purposefully turning off the moral sense in order to be able to engage in this kind of behavior. I don't know which it is, but in both cases, I think it is pitiful. I agree.
Yeah. With Teddy Roosevelt, he wants to shoot an elephant. He's not pretending that it's because of our exalted status within the universe. Maybe he did. I don't know. But it seems like he just wants to shoot elephants because of the challenge of it. And it's horrible. I think it's like
the sport.
It's horrific to want to do that. But it's a little different from the people who keep trying to come up with all the different ways that we are superior to these creatures, and it's like we're being defensive about it. We're just like, accept that we are who we are. We're one part of the animal kingdom, like all these other animals. And the idea that scientists would try to do this seems very anti-science. It's very much like we are continuous with nature. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Except for those who take it to that next level, like the behaviorists, who also just do that with other human beings.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
They're consistent. It's like psychopathic, but it's like consistent at least. Like if that's their conception of science, as it really has to be like this view from nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go through some of it's hard to communicate the richness that you have by the end of reading this, but I think it's at least worth going through some of the things that these elephants do that you might just not think that they do. It's like mourning their dead, like the huge significance that they seem to put on the dead was like striking and eerie and eerily spiritual.
Burial rituals.
Yeah. So like they bury to the extent that they can, they'll put like leaves and dirt on top of their dead. They'll sit with them sometimes, for a long time, like a day, just next to the dead body. Whenever they come up on even the bones of elephants, they will like have like moments of silence,
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like clearly they're recognizing something about death that other animals might not recognize. And that I would have thought is human, which made me really think like, do they have a fear of death?
Yeah. I mean, they might,
yeah.
In the interview I did in the Very Bad Wizard book with Franz de Waal, I lead the introduction to the interview. It goes like this. 2 elephants walk at night. There's heavy rain, and the older elephant slips and falls in the mud. She's unable to get up. The younger elephant, unrelated to her companion, stays with her for most of the night. The next day, a group of mahouts, the elephant caretakers, which we learn about in this article too, try to hoist the elephant up from her feet with braces and ropes. In all the commotion, a crowd is gathered. The younger elephant remains by the side of her fallen friend. The mahouts and the crowd shout for her to move out of the way so that they can get better leverage, but she won't budge. Instead, she burrows her head under the body of the other elephant and tries to lift her up. She does this several times, risking injury in the attempts. Incredibly, the elephant appears to recognize that the mahouts want to help rather than hurt her friend. She times her pushes, or so it seemed to me, with the hoisting of the mahouts. And I remember that one of its grad students showed me this video, and I was so blown away by it. I was so moved by it. It was absolutely beautiful. Like, I don't know how you don't call something like that moral when you're risking your own life to save a non-relative, which they do. They're very communal, and they take care of their own. They take care of their young, and they educate their young and instruct them of the norms of the community. And it's very hard to think of that as non-moral, even if it is not exactly in the way that we conceptualize morality.
Yeah. And again, I was just arguing, I have a student who seems to not believe in anything like altruism in humans.
Yeah.
So like, okay, if you don't believe that even humans are doing anything for the sake of another, then
right.
then
exactly.
fine.
You're being consistent.
Right.
That's all we can
But there are plenty of anecdotes of elephants helping humans.
Yeah. Birds, there's this thing.
Yeah, that thing about birds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. If you have that up.
Yeah, staff members at the elephant sanctuary told me of an incident with one of their girls who spotted a fallen bird outside her barn and ran right over to it, utterly distraught. She crooned and stroked it and did not settle down until it had been properly laid to rest. What did this mean to her exactly? We don't know, but she was clearly very moved by a fellow creature's woe and had no trouble seeing it for what it was, different life forms though they were. How sad when we, quote, higher animals who share this gift convince ourselves to dull it. Like, that's a key line, right? Like, we can do this. We can feel sad when we see a fallen bird, but we're like dulling that part of ourselves by refusing on unprincipled grounds to attribute that to other complex mammals.
Yeah. One of the things that I think has to be convincing for like the hardcore science heads is like the brain of an elephant is huge, right? They similarly are born with brains that are like a third the size of the mature brain. They have to be nurtured for the first couple of years, and their brains get to be big and complex. And that's just has to be like clearly tied to this. Like that alone makes me think just like murdering these guys like in cold blood. Like, how could you think that these animals don't suffer and that they don't care?
Because of people like Wesley Smith, who is, I guess, a bioethicist, just pure evil, like whose whole identity and career is based on exactly what you're talking about, which is refusing to and mocking the people who attribute emotions and complex behavior and even moral behavior to animals. So he talks about Matthew Scully's book, which is like this kind of religious Bush speechwriter, like George W. Bush speechwriter who wrote this book about the evils of factory farm, but from a kind of Christian perspective, where it's like, you know, if we have dominion over the animals, like we're not supposed to treat them like this, you know? So she writes that this guy characterizes Scully's book as outrageously anthropomorphic, literally talking about like pigs on factory farms being tortured and saying like that's bad, and describes some of the writings of Jane Goodall as pure figments of her imagination. Goodall almost screeches as she anthropomorphizes away. She's like shrill about her anthropomorphizing.
She's labile.
Just like this guy, unbelievable. And so she writes, in Smith's view, Scully and Goodall go wrong by inferring emotional states from animals' observable behavior. Smith also criticized an elementary school primer on farm animals as propaganda for anthropomorphically aimed items such as this. Cow fact: mother cows separated from their calves by a fence will moo loudly and seem very upset. They'll wait through hunger, cold, and bad weather to be with their calves. Smith does not dispute that the mooing takes place. If there is anything about animal psychology that would seem to be pretty well established, it is mothers' attachment to their young. But apparently the suggestion that this behavior indicates the presence of recognizable emotions is a dangerously anthropomorphic idea to be putting in the heads of children, because then they're not going to think that it's okay for them to just kill all these animals for no reason, for pleasure, like fucking Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And for McDonald's.
Yeah.
No, it's hard not to read sometimes like a systems justification view of what's going on here.
Yes. It's hard not to read that in a lot of things. In a lot of domains of contemporary life. Yeah.
Okay, like some other things that elephants clearly do is, well, for one, they pass the rouge test, the mirror test of self-recognition, which some other animals seem to pass, but that's basically...
But it's hard, like dolphins, chimpanzees, maybe dogs, but it's a little unclear, I think.
Like humans of only a certain age.
Yeah.
And like the most simple version of this is it's called the rouge test because you put some makeup, like a red dot on the cheek of say a child, and you put a mirror in front of them, and if they reach for their own face to like try to get rid of it, it shows that they recognize that that's them, which is a hard thing to pass. Tool use, right? Like they can't, like there's no evidence that elephants are making tools and handing them down. Like they don't have wrenches, but they clearly are doing things like they're making use of things in their environment, like sticks, or like there was one story about elephants plugging up a bell, like a warning, like what was it, like a bell that alerted that they were leaving the whatever their enclosure was, so they would plug it up so that it wouldn't ring.
Yeah, they plugged it up with mud. Yeah,
with mud. And then there's the communication stuff, right? Which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
I think we're just scratching the surface.
I'm sure. Like that's the thing is we're just scratching the surface. They're probably doing stuff at a level of sophistication that we can't conceive of because they're different kinds of creatures. Still, that doesn't mean it's any less complex, even if we are barred, or at least it's very difficult for us to kind of discern exactly what the experience is, and maybe even impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. And it took us a while to even figure out that elephants were vocalizing in this wide range. I remember, like, it blew my mind when I first heard it, right? So they make sounds that are audible to our ears, but they make a bunch of sounds that are like subsonic for us, like infrasonically. So they're at a much lower frequency than the human ears can hear, right? We're limited to, somewhere between like 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz or something like that. And elephants are communicating in tones that are so low that we can't hear. Crazily, like I guess some people can feel it, like in the air, right? Like it's
not that crazy.
Yeah.
I bet if you lived there, you probably
I'm
could.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like
you can feel a lot of things that we don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely vibrating the ground. Apparently, it's vibrating through the ground, and they're picking up on that. So it took us a long time to recognize that they were doing that, like the 80s, right before somebody realized that. Let alone trying to like crack the code of what it is they're communicating, right? Which takes a lot of work, right? We're doing it with dolphins. I guess we're doing it with elephants. It really paints this portrait of a complex psychology, one that's just unshakable to realize. Like with all of that put together, their memory, their emotional responses, their ability to communicate, their mourning of the dead, their use of tools, I'm convinced that these are persons.
Okay, so this is Lael Watson's fascinating 2002 book, Elephant Moms, is devoted to exploring this sort of not intrinsically unreasonable event that verges on the uncanny. There was a ranger in South Africa. There's a line of elephants that are distrustful of human beings, and there was an effort to repair a fence that had a mother and baby being stranded on the opposite sides of it. They were both getting agitated as workers approached. And the ranger said that the cow stopped, put her trunk through the cables to calm the calf, and seemed to be thinking about her next move. He said he could not prove what happened next, nor did the other rangers believe him, but this is what he saw. She talked to that kid. She told him exactly what to do, and without any further fuss, he did. He turned away from her and the fence and went into the deep shade of a tree 20 yards away, where he stood motionless, becoming virtually invisible. And as the truck appeared, she raised a huge cloud of dust, stamping and blowing, making short charges at the vehicle, frightening the crew sufficiently to get them to back off and go away. When the noise and confusion was at its height, the calf in camouflage made his move. He sidled over the fence, slipped quietly through the gap, and went over to wait in the cover of the succulent forest. I was certain then that the cow's entire performance, cow meaning the mother elephant, had been a brilliant diversion, beautifully executed, for as soon as she was sure he had made good his escape, she ignored the truck and its occupants and turned her back, sashaying in satisfaction back to join her calf in the safety of the park.
I love this story. And then she has such a great sort of discussion about like what to do when you're trying to communicate this. And she says, Payne writes of a conversation she had with a senior scout from Nataba Mangwe Park, in which she asked him how he speaks of events that seem to be outside normal experience. And this is in all caps. "You just tell what happened," he surprised her with a shout and burning stare. "You just tell what you saw. You must simply tell what happened," he repeated quietly as she sat there in shock. only God knows what it means.
Yeah.
I
love the humility of that.
Yeah, totally. You don't have to explain it to tell it. All you're doing is trying to convey the facts. I can already anticipate some people calling me a sucker or something for accepting these cognitive abilities, but I'm convinced that this is trivially easy. Like, I think that what it requires seems to be a great deal. Like, it's communicating to her calf a plan, and it is a blatant attempt at deception that requires that you know that other people have beliefs that can be deceived.
Clear theory of mind.
And that they can be a clear theory of mind. I don't doubt for 1 second that they have this. Like, let me give you an example of something I was utterly convinced by. And again, maybe I'm a sucker. Like, I saw a video of a herd of elephants crossing a road, and cars stopped so that they could cross safely. And you see this one elephant at the end, when all of the other elephants, including the little calves, have crossed. The elephant sort of like turns back and gives a little like wave with their trunk to the car at the front. Yeah. And you can't help but think that was like a little thank you that she gave. And I don't have any doubt that they're capable of that. And like, the only thing that perplexes me is how you could communicate such a complex sort of sequence of events
to the calf
if you don't have a grammar. But who the fuck knows?
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I don't know what words they have. These things are smart. Like, it is a tragedy. I think it's a tragedy for all animals that their inability to communicate linguistically with humans prevents humans from ever really treating them fully as agents or as even morally valuable. I want to know what you think about this. So Paul and I have often argued about whether or not eventually people are going to realize, like, are we in 100 years going to look back and say we were moral monsters for killing and eating animals? And he, I think, is an optimist. He thinks that the moral circle is expanding. He says, we used to think poorly of other human beings that weren't part of our tribe or race or whatever. And now we think of them as all worthy of protection. And he doesn't see why we're not going to keep expanding this to animals. I'm a deep pessimist about this. I actually don't think we ever will. And I think that the difference is that humans can communicate. They can write books. They can write poems. They can ask you, in the times of slavery, a slave could communicate to you, like, please let me go. Like, there was a point at which I think it was impossible to ignore that people had moral rights just because they were able to communicate all of those feelings that they had, and we could see that they were the same as ours. I think that without language, we'll always find a way to keep thinking of animals as inferior.
But it's not like they just figure it out. Like, slavery has been a part of like the human race for thousands of years, and like, it's not like they just figured it out. Oh wait, they can communicate.
I think that a huge part of it was the written communication, like that we could actually
we could read books. We could read like Frederick Douglass's autobiography, and
that the slaves could write books.
Yeah.
When could slaves write ever?
I mean, Epictetus was a slave that could write.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the African slave trade. Regardless, like, I think that the ability to speak on your own behalf is hugely important. It might not be necessary or even sufficient, but I think it played a huge role in people's opinions about slaves, especially people who weren't the slave owners, who were in the North and read like these accounts that slaves themselves wrote. They might never have seen that perspective. All I'm saying is that animals will never have that. Like, that tool won't be available to them.
It allows the ideas to get more widely spread, especially among the people who aren't, like, their moral identity isn't wrapped up in denying them these rights. But, it might be a difference in kind, but it might also be a difference of degree. Like, there's a reason why people don't want videos of factory farms getting out into the world. And it's not that they're writing about their experience. You can just fucking see it. You can see that they're suffering, and they don't have to describe it in words. They just have to describe it. And if you stifle that,
I think though that we've been, factory farms is a particular kind of evil, but we have been slicing the throats of animals for thousands of years, looking them in the eye and doing it. I think there would be a genuine difference if they turned to you and said, please don't do this.
I don't know. Like you're more optimistic than me. Like,
no, I'm a pessimist.
We're like doing that to like people. Like this is happening all over the world now to other humans who we know who are literally telling you, please don't bomb my entire family and our like hospital.
I'm not saying it will it will be the key that like once you have language, we don't do horrible things. Like obviously, right. I'm saying like one reason like I think it will be so easy to never even think is that they can't turn to you and be like, please don't do this. Like, I think that's actually about like of course you can stifle that, right? We do, as you say, we do this to other human beings all the time. It's just, I think, harder.
It's another excuse to like turn off your empathy.
Right. And there's not going to be a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X for elephants. Like there won't be a great communicator who can try their hardest to speak on behalf of the plight of their people.
I don't know. Isn't Jane Goodall that for chimpanzees and bonobos? It's true. She's not one of those, but you can speak on behalf. I think it's more about just raising awareness.
Right. Like we've been trying to raise awareness for a long time. My only claim is that if an elephant all of a sudden was unlocked the power of English grammar and wrote a book, that would really like cause a lot of people like us. I was kind of convinced before, but like these are people,
I like the Agee, the James Agee, great writer, novelist, also wrote Night of the Hunter, amazing Charles Lawton movie. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
apparently he suggested another movie idea in the last letter he wrote, and this is that idea. At the beginning, elephants converge from all over Africa towards a disembodied voice, the voice of God, which addresses them roughly as follows. My children, you know that you are my chosen people. You know that to you alone I have given my secret. I do not regard myself as omnipotent. I gave up when I gave to man the will to love me or hate me or merely to disregard me, so I can promise you nothing. What little I can tell you is neither encouraging nor discouraging. Your kind is already used for work, and the men who use you are neither markedly improved nor disimproved by contact with you, nor have you been improved nor disimproved in that process. But now a new age begins. Soon you will be taken to be looked upon, to be regarded as strange and wonderful, and forgive me, my dear ones, as funny. As I said, I'm not omnipotent, like the God is like again, I'm not omnipotent. It's not my fault. It's like, own this, God. Come on. As I said, I'm not omnipotent. I can't even prophesy. I can only ask this. Be your own good selves, always faithfully, always in knowledge of my love and regard. And through so being, you may convert those heathen, those barbarians, where all else has failed. During this admonition and blessing, the oldest elephant sadly leaves the assembly and walks away to the great secret elephant cemetery and dies there. Soon after, men come among the elephants and capture them for circuses. And then it ends in like a Balanchine ballet. And it's like, I think it shows that like humans have always, at the same time of denying them mental states, also attributed like spiritual kind of elevation to elephants. Like they're the ones that are talking to God.
Yeah, I love that little story. Also was one of the things that just made me want to cry.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a good place to end because the story that she ends with is one of the most heartbreaking stories I've ever read.
It gets very existential.
Really
I
does.
really read this. I strongly urge our listeners to read this.
Absolutely. Like it's just well done. Without any like preachiness, I guess. Like I just want to say, like there's no. You can tell that we're convinced about this by the time you're done reading it, but you're not. I didn't feel. I felt like she was taking me sort of through a journey.
Yeah, and it's meandering. Like it just kind of goes from one place to the other and then back, but not in a way where you feel like it's scatterbrained. It's like very pleasant to go on this journey. This wandering journey through like the history and philosophy and psychology and like science of elephants and their plight.
Yeah, and the last bit is. She's talking about the outlook for elephants is not very good. Like it's unclear what their future is. And so she tells this story from Lyle Watson, who was walking around the coast, I guess in Africa, and saw this interaction. There was a sole surviving elephant, female elephant, from the park, like the last elephant. And she walked over to the coast. Standing there in the shade of the tree was an elephant, a fully grown African elephant facing left, staring out to sea, a female with a left tusk broken off near the base, looking for all the world like the stub of a large cigar. I had never seen this elephant before, but I knew who she was, who she had to be. I recognized her from a color photograph put out by the Department of Water Affairs and Forestry under the title, The Last Remaining Knisna Elephant. This was the matriarch herself. But what was she doing here? She was here because she no longer had anyone to talk to in the forest. She was standing here on the edge of the ocean because it was the next nearest and most powerful source of infrasound. The under rumble of the surf would have been well within her range, a soothing balm for an animal used to being surrounded, submerged by low and comforting frequencies, by the life sounds of a herd, and now this was the next best thing. My heart went out to her. The whole idea of this grandmother of many being alone for the first time in her life was tragic, conjuring up the vision of countless other old and lonely souls. But just as I was about to be consumed by helpless sorrow, something even more extraordinary took place. The throbbing was back in the air. I could feel it, and I began to understand why. The blue whale, mentioned previously, the blue whale was on the surface again, pointed inshore, resting her blowhole clearly visible. The matriarch was here for the whale. The largest animal in the ocean and the largest living land animal were no more than 100 yards apart, and I was convinced that they were communicating in infrasound, in concert, sharing big brains and long lives, understanding the pain of high investment in a few precious offspring. Aware of the importance and the pleasure of complex sociality, these rare and lovely great ladies were commiserating over the back fence of this rocky cape shore, woman to woman, matriarch to matriarch, almost the last of their kind. I turned, blinking away the tears, and left them to it. This was no place for a mere man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're very moved by this because, you know.
Yeah. Because you thought I was just like cold robot
clinical
for science.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I think science needs to come to terms, honestly, with what the capacity for not only cognition and communication, but for suffering and for joy that these animals have. And it's a great tragedy. It's an evolutionary stroke of luck that human beings were the species that became dominant. I think probably because of language. That's a moral luck that I think we need to that comes with great responsibility for us.
I like what she says about that story right after, that it's oddly reminiscent of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signals piped out over the border from one domain into another, as alien as it is infinite, with such poignant hopefulness that they may be heard at all, much less understood. Out of great loneliness, the elephant went to the edge of her world and poured her soul into the void. And out of great providence, someone was there to answer. It does sound like the same impulse, you know, a kind of loneliness, a kind of utter disillusionment with life and this world. And so you're reaching out to see if there's somebody that you can connect with that isn't part, like that's in a total, because, you know, think about it from the elephant perspective. They don't understand what a whale is. It is like an alien to an elephant, and yet it's something. It's some way of connecting in a world that has let her down. And it's beautiful essay. There's a lot of stuff in here that we didn't even talk about. I feel sad.
I feel like the elephants must be sad because they're like, why can't humans like understand? Like, we've been trying to tell them, like, don't do this, like, but they're not listening. And like this one last elephant is going out talking to a whale, you know, like
if only they could podcast, then they would.
Long form podcasting from an elephant would actually change the world.
That would be, I would definitely listen to that. Speaking of long form podcasting, we should wrap up. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The Caitrin has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man.
can have a brain?
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.